Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Exit or Die, the no bullshit podcast for founders, startups, investors, and operators building what's next. Today is a very special episode because we have not one, but two founders in our episode. My guests are today Liliana Lettieri and Peter Veto, co-founders of Pixun, a company bringing real sunlight to indoor spaces through displays and an intelligent solar platform designed to bring full and real spectrum concentrated sunlight indoors. Today, we are not talking about better LEDs. We are talking about full spectrum sunlight, and that is delivered through hardware, and that's powered by AI and designed to fundamentally change how we live and work indoors. And if you guys think now, okay, that sounds very niche, consider that we spend over 90% of our time indoors. Liliana and Peter, welcome to Exit or Die.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Peter. Excited to be here.
I would say we start directly into the topic and with the core problem. Most people don't think about light at all. It's just there. But you are saying this is actually one of the biggest hidden health issues of modern life. Peter, why is that?
Yeah, so the primary reason is our increasingly indoor lifestyles, which of course comes with a relative lack of daylight. And that then comes with all kinds of negative health consequences as well. And so daylight is something special. We don't fully understand why, but we cannot really replicate it through electric means. And that's really, that's the core of the problem. And we can go into all kinds of details of that. But basically what we see in the effect of it is that increased daylight exposure correlates with better health and longevity as well. And also from the opposite direction, if you have some lack of daylight, then that will result in deteriorating health even within a few days. And again, we don't fully understand why that is. We are starting to understand some mechanisms behind it, but not the whole picture.
And Liliana, from a biological and human perspective, what is artificial light doing to us that we underestimate?
Yeah, so one of the aspects of light that we rely on as humans to survive and thrive is its ability to impart visual information about our environment and about, how to get around the world visually. But really, that's just one component of what light is doing in many respects. I mean, it's information, it's energy, it does many things. And on a primordial level, it's not just sending information to our eyes. Our eyes are sort of more recent developments at an evolutionary timescale. There's primordial mechanisms that are really regulating all kinds of photobiochemical cascades that are about turning on and off systems and regulating sleep-wake cycles and moving, things from one place to another to support, organ health or whatever it is. There's all kinds of circadian mechanisms. And as we have engineered out parts of the spectrum, first with incandescent lighting and then more recently with LED lighting, in order to accomplish visual goals, we have engineered out part of the spectrum, and we've gotten narrower and narrower and narrower for energy savings purposes or for accomplishing certain technological or engineering goals. But as we've engineered out part of the spectrum, our bodies are then, depleted of this part of the spectrum that isn't about visual cues. It's about thriving and keeping our body going.
And all the information what you are currently telling us, Peter, from a technology perspective, why hasn't this problem been solved already?
Yeah, I guess on the side of the market, this is due to a lack of awareness, but that is changing very quickly now, both with newer research results and more lines of research opening into these aforementioned mechanisms that might be behind this difference and why daylight is so important. So that is changing quickly, and also with online influencers, etc., increasingly speaking about that. So gradually it's becoming now mainstream. However, on the industry side, basically we have a huge industry, both for general lighting and for displays, which is built around the notion that we can have high energy efficiency by omitting the vast majority of the spectrum and only triggering the visual system in the narrow bandwidths where it is absolutely necessary to have sufficient visual lighting for vision, right? And so that works because the visual system is quite simplistic. And so in this ways, of course, we can just present very narrow bands of red, green, and blue and put together all the colors from that. And for most visual tasks, that is enough. It also comes with some visual downsides, actually, and this may be one of the factors behind increasing myopia prevalences, etc. And also in short term, it has a negative effect on our accommodation to how we focus in depth, and some other visual aspects as well, with some negative long-term adaptation effects. But most of all, what is missing from the industry's viewpoint is really that doing lighting for vision is fairly simple and can be efficient this way, but we are missing all the physiological benefits of full spectrum, real, natural light.
Mhm. Then I would say let's go one step deeper. So let's talk about your founding journey. In your case, it's not the typical split between the vision and tech, but rather a shared background across both areas, right? Liliana, you both came from a research-driven environment in the health domain. So what initially sparked the idea, and how did it evolve into something you want to pursue more seriously?
Yeah, so it's interesting. My background is in biology, but it was really more focused on research around how do visual and color cues operate in an environment between organisms. So more kind of ecology and signaling and communication. But I had this research background, and then eventually had sort of left research and gone into engineering and was working with, essentially being a project manager, taking in home electronics. So I was working with, home networking devices. So the health part of it really came about because of my own health struggles, my own health journey. So I, was working in this engineering field, but in indoor spaces and, on screens a lot. And I had my own health symptoms that arose that were kind of debilitating. And they really fell under the umbrella of kind of perimenopause. It was hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia. And through putting my research hat back on to try to solve my own problems, I sort of accidentally stumbled on that my symptoms completely kind of shifted and eventually really went away when I just got serious about my circadian hygiene. When I was like, I'm going to get up at sunrise. I'm going to, make sure that I go out and get as much sunlight during the day because I know that I'm indoors too much. I know that I'm in front of screens too much. Let me just get my circadian hygiene at a better, more aligned. And, and I got serious about making sure that my space was dark at night when I was sleeping and, really tried to honor that light dark cycle of like daytime should have daytime cues and nighttime should have nighttime cues. And my symptoms just kind of vanished. And that's when I was like, wow, there's something really to this that I haven't really fully given, the importance that it really deserves. And then I met Peter and I was like, wait, you did what now? Like, how can I help? So, and then because I had this background in sort of, helping teams go from concept to design to manufacturing, scaling, shipping, getting all of those steps out of the way, I was like, well, I can help there maybe. So, yeah.
So the perfect fit. And Peter, I mean, since the original idea for Pixun came from you and Liliana, joined in mid-2024, at what point did you both realize that this concept had the potential to become a real buildable solution?
I think it's been clear since the very first fully functional working prototype. That was really the feasibility test. And I built it myself also to show to myself, because before, of course, I had doubts or how much effort I can put to this or how much I can claim or tell people that it's going to work before I know. But since then, I think it's been clear, and the rest is really just down to the implementation and, of course, the fit with the market, which is always an evolving question for sure.
Yeah, and most of the startups are building products for a market, right? But when did you both realize this is not just a product? This could be a whole new category, Liliana.
Yeah, so it really evolved over conversations with, potential customers, potential partners, potential investors. It was sort of an evolving realization that, yes, of course, displays are a great starting point as an interface to bring sunshine in through fiber. Especially for indoor spaces or say hospitals where people are sort of, maybe bedridden or just can't access sunlight as much as they need to. But beyond that, I mean, like you said at the beginning, we're indoors 90% of the time. This is just one interface that we could leverage that, sort of turns your display into sort of a sauna, sad lamp, campfire combo that you're sitting in front of and getting nice light. But also, this is an opportunity really to think really big, larger scale about how do we then leverage this opportunity to bring in sunlight through fiber. That's something that people don't talk about. It's something that people don't really, consider as an infrastructure alternative. And we can do that. And, displays is a great way to start. And we can continue to sort of think about that in a much more holistic way. Like, how do we support people's indoor environments through sunshine that can be implemented and tailored to support health through, even, treatments or recovery, all kinds of sort of, even telehealth implementation that you can employ light as a treatment itself. So there's lots of ways it can go, and I think displays is just the beginning.
Yeah. But let's break it down. So Pixun is not just one product, it's a system. So it's solar collector, it's fiber optics, light hub, displays, luminaires, even AI. So explain it like I'm a user. So what happens from sunlight hitting my roof to me sitting in front of my laptop?
Yeah, so if you're just a user of the display, let's say as our core first product, then basically your experience in terms of how you interact with the display is very similar to any regular display. So you have the same video capabilities, the same colors, resolution, etc. However, the light that is coming out is pure sunlight, basically. So the benefit is on the health and comfort side, not so much on how you use it. You can use it like any other display in any indoor space, including in windowless or underground spaces, really anywhere. And what's happening behind the screen is that we have a solar light collector outside, somewhere where the sun reaches it. And that concentrates sunlight into a fiber optic cable, which we can channel deep into a building anywhere, really even hundreds of meters deep. So it can be anywhere. And that's the basic level, which is just the fully analog thing where the light is immediately showing up in and through your computer screen. Now, the next level of it, as a system, that same light you can also use for illumination. So the same sort of light collector you can use to illuminate displays as well as for general illumination, any indoor space through luminaires. And then once we have that system, our bigger vision and big dream really is to treat the system as a whole and have control over all of its aspects, because that opens all kinds of new doors. For instance, once this installation is done, of course, you have sunlight coming for free all the time, but you don't need it all the time. So instead of shutting it off, as you would with an electric light source, you can turn on electric generation. And that then requires a new system, really, where you have to control, of course, when to do what. And here you can also generate electricity anytime you do not need the light that is constantly supplied once the solar light collector has been installed.
Sounds very complex for the engineering part. So what's the hardest engineering problem in making real sunlight usable indoors?
Yeah, from our perspective, it's in the display. So basically, all displays so far have had more spread out light sources for their backlighting. And that's a different challenge. Of course, it evolves through many decades, so that's also their advantage. But now we have to start from the ground up to build a new kind of backlighting architecture, which starts with a very small and intense light source. And so that's an optical challenge. And of course, the display also has to have an electric light source for times when the sun is not shining, for nighttime use, etc. And so blending the two is a somewhat novel optical challenge. It's absolutely solvable. But again, we are starting from the bottom up, and the whole rest of the display industry have had many decades to develop what they have. So this is a novel challenge, but it's absolutely feasible. And we are on the right track with several very well working prototypes already.
Yeah. And Liliana, when we come to the part when we're talking to users and customers, what is the hardest part in making something this complex feel simple to the user?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really a matter of communicating that light is something that is important beyond visual, and to really figure out how to sell something that we all take for granted, really. I mean, sell it in the sense that we take it for granted outside, and as soon as we come inside, we expect that it's just about visual and that's the only thing that matters. But really, our systems, our biological systems, our human body systems are running on a lot more complex information and energy. And we can now leverage things like fiber that we've been using for other reasons. And now it's like, oh, we don't have to, open up a wall or cut a hole in the side of the building. We can leverage fiber to do something really innovative, which is to illuminate our indoor spaces with something that is free and can help us with energy savings, and it doesn't have to heat up our homes in ways that cost money. So it's just about a reframe, I think, which is about storytelling, which is the hardest part, is to sort of communicate to diverse audiences like, no, this is really innovative and it is worthwhile. Let me tell you more.
Yeah, but now it gets even more interesting. You are not just delivering light, right? So you are building an AI system, Pixun AI, that adapts it. Why does light need AI?
Yeah, well, light itself doesn't need AI, but as I mentioned before, the ultimate vision with the whole system incorporates a lot more. And so eventually we can incorporate basically three aspects. One would be health data, and that can come through wearables and other health sources on various timescales. And that needs integration. And of course, as technology develops, these data become just more and more. So it's really hard for any human really to grasp that or to track that or to make use of it as it is. And then another source of data are external types of data, so weather or light related data, and those need integration as well. And finally, and most importantly, there's a third group, which would be user profiles and user health and performance needs. So basically, you can have needs also changing on a short time scale. So whatever, you want to be more active one day, or you want to boost your recovery another, etc. Just to name the most simple ones. And so the integration of all of this definitely requires some controls. And once we have this whole system, of course, it opened all kinds of possibilities for experimentation and self-experimentation, which can happen on the fly. So with now modern sensors, you can track all kinds of hormone levels and blood sugar, etc., very precisely with minute by minute precision. And so that's a lot of data. That's not something to handle for the user, but it can be incorporated. And we know that these measures react very, very quickly to changes in light stimuli. So yeah, possibilities both for research and user self-experimentation and tailoring that for health needs and performance outcome measures. It can happen, but it requires a control system.
Yeah, very interesting and great insight so far. Let me dig a little bit deeper. You are talking about circadian rhythms, dynamic adjustments based on physiological input from wearables and productivity optimization. Are we moving toward personalized environments instead of static workplaces?
Absolutely, yes. And of course, nature itself is never static. So even with the most analog basic version, you have the dynamics of daylight, which is the most important. So really anything added on top of that is just a cherry on the cake, but the core is following nature and daylight. And so that itself has its dynamics, which are not really possible to replicate through electric means. Some aspects of it we can, as some indoor lighting is trying to, but most indoor lighting and displays do not. They are very static. And if they try to replicate these circannual, other dynamics, then usually they introduce more flicker. And it also becomes more apparent that the lack of the full spectrum will backfire somewhere. And so again, starting from daylight is the right position, but then the way we use it can also incorporate these aforementioned health goals and be tailored for individual needs, which themselves are dynamic, yes.
Liliana, let's be honest. I mean, hardware is hard, right? So it's hard, it's capital intensive, it's complex, it is slow sometimes, and slow compared to software and software as a service. Why did you decide to go down this path anyway?
Oh, look, the reality is that we all rely on physical interfaces, physical interactions, and physical products in our world. And like Peter just alluded to, I mean, yes, we are going to implement, and we need to implement sort of software controls to enhance and to add some intelligent infrastructure to control and tailor. But the reality is the hardware itself really needs a rethink. And so that's where we want to start, because we have both experienced ourselves on our own personal health journeys and hear from so many people who are out there in the world sort of interacting with, artificial light hardware, whether it's lighting or displays or, even headlights, that there's something fundamentally that needs to be reworked. And so we need to start at the hardware level and rethink the lighting in the hardware, and then we'll build systems around that.
Yeah. And I can imagine every startup has issues when creating such great products, right? Every startup has hurdles when building a new product, especially when you are building a product for a new category. Peter, what nearly broke during the development of Pixun?
I would say on the technical side, it's been fairly smooth. Of course, there are smaller issues, but that's expected. But again, since the feasibility has been demonstrated, I think at least I have been quite confident on this side. However, the really, especially since that point, the really deciding factor, I think, is the human one. So, yeah, before Liliana, I test worked with many potential co-founders, and that is where things could have taken a less favorable route. And I'm just super, super grateful for how everything ended up with our core team of 3 people. And I think this is a very strong position, and I'm super, super happy. But before, yes, I think the human side is where the big dangers lie. At least that's my experience so far. And that's where things could have broken. But luckily, I think we are on the best track.
You talked about the human side, and human side is also business side. Liliana,
Yeah.
what nearly broke on the business side? I mean, you are on the beginning of your journey, right? So I'm sure there will be much more in the future. But hiring, fundraising, positioning, what nearly broke here on that side?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, the business side is the human side, and I wouldn't say anything nearly broke, but I would say that what has had to evolve and pivot and iterate the most is the storytelling and the communicating to diverse audiences. How do we communicate and how do we position ourselves as what we envision this can be? And along the way, we've accomplished a lot in a pretty short amount of time. I mean, we've gone from kind of a concept and an IP and a really big idea to now sort of some brand recognition. We've been invited to give symposium talks and panel discussions and publications to industry, and within the sort of trade society. We're getting ready for a big trade show that's coming up in May, and have really made some great connections with strategic partnerships. So, big name solar collectors that are interested in making their way into the US and European markets more, with more of a foothold. And so we're helping them with that. Labs and institutions that are really interested in increased performance, whether it's esports or increased accessibility to healthy office spaces. So research labs that deal with child development and vision, or autism, or just healthy spaces, indoor lighting designers, so architectural. So there's lots of ways in which I think we've encountered, potential hurdles and just said, it's about talking to people. It is a human interaction. It is about conversations and hearing what people want and hearing what their needs are, and then really diving into connecting the dots for them. So, like Peter mentioned, we've attracted a CEO who's really bringing incredible expertise and sort of veteran experience from major display companies. And that's been a huge win. We've gotten our first capital investment. So lots of wins. Nothing is easy. It's all about just keeping your eye on, moving forward, taking steps, talking to people, don't give up, just grit, in the face of challenges. There's always challenges.
Yeah, for sure. You're competing with how people think about light, work, and productivity. How do you sell something people don't yet fully understand?
I mean, we start with those who do understand already. So we both come from a from a both professional and personal health experience background. And so because of that, we've been in good contact with all kinds of light sensitivity organizations. I've been advising them and been speaking with so many highly sensitive individuals. And they are the canaries in the coal mine. So whatever works for them is also generally the healthiest for everyone. And so we know their need very well. And we have built the product around their needs. And this is a field where the understanding is already there. And then zooming out, there's the larger niche, still probably a niche, but again, approaching mainstream of various health circles where the deep physiological impact of light has been discussed for quite some while now. So that's also part of our, let's say, beachhead market where the understanding is there already. And for the rest, yes, we just keep talking with whoever we can, critical or not, and trying to spread awareness of all the research behind this, because, this is not just a narrative. There's so much research behind it. Obviously, it's hard to get people to read it or to try to understand it. But I guess that's one angle to maybe convince those who have so far not been open, but we're not trying that too hard. I think there's plenty of people who already understand what we are doing. And finally, and eventually, it's all about these basic needs for daylight, which is undeniable. And so that's, in and of itself, that's an easy sell. Obviously, we have to sell a brand new product, which starts with a small production volume, so it will have to be more expensive, etc. So there needs to be a balance there. But this is kind of the approach, starting from the small hardcore and growing bigger.
Yeah. Liliana, is this a premium niche product, or do you believe this becomes standard infrastructure in offices and homes? And I think I know your answer already, but I think it should be a standard infrastructure, right?
Eventually, yeah. I mean, we do have to start with people that are either really not happy with the existing solutions or are really interested in optimizing and tailoring their space to support wellness. I mean, the beachhead is really sort of a little bit niche in that they are interested in trying something new. I mean, displays are pretty commoditized right now. You can get them pretty cheaply. And so, this isn't going to be an off-the-shelf, kind of cost-effective solution at first. But the reality is all offices and homes can benefit from free sunlight brought indoors through infrastructure that's really not super challenging. I mean, beyond the initial installation of the solar collector, fiber is pretty commonplace and even becoming required in most places now for various reasons. And the energy savings component is also something that many people, businesses and homes are going to have to think about. I mean, the grid is getting very, we need to think about how do we make a robust grid in many ways. And this is one way, is to leverage free sunlight, free photons to illuminate indoor spaces. Its health and its energy kind of combined into one infrastructure solution that could be very standard. I think we can get there one day.
Yeah, I think also that it should be a standard infrastructure. Now we are coming to a very special part of our podcast. We call it the Exit or Die Rapid Fire. So it's a quick fire round, 5 questions from my side, 2 questions to you, Liliana, and 2 questions to you, Peter, and also 1 question to both of you. Are you ready, guys?
Let's do it.
Perfect. Liliana, number 1 for you would be, what is the most underrated factor for human performance?
Deep rest and recovery. I think we all really have to sit and just do nothing, in the sense that we're not driving and acting and responding, that we're just truly taking a moment to rest and reflect. And sometimes that just is as simple as saying no, saying no and just sitting and regrouping. I surf. I'm not a very good surfer, but the reality is, if you're going to surf, you have to rest in between sets. You have to rest in between waves. And when that wave comes, you have to work really hard. You have to produce a lot in the sense that you have to like paddle, paddle, paddle. It's the same about productivity. There's some times when you're working super hard, and it's really important to reset in between those waves.
The one wellness myth that annoys you.
That a treatment is always the best way to fix something. If something's broken, maybe a treatment or a pill or a supplement isn't really what's most needed. Maybe it's really taking a moment to take care of your needs, whether those are your personal needs or your relationship needs or your environmental needs.
Yeah, perfect. Peter, the hardest engineering trade-off you faced so far, or especially when it becomes to Pixun?
Yeah, it's very obvious. It's time versus engineering or design. So right now we're under huge time pressure for this demo at Display Week, as mentioned, early May. But there's so much to do, and it's always the case, of course.
Yeah. And the second question for you, Peter, what do you think is the most overhyped tech trend right now?
Maybe it's not one trend, but it's a trend in thinking, and that is the sole focus or just overwhelming focus on software. So I think our actual lives are determined by our wellness and its physical circumstances. So yeah, no amount of software can really change the hardware, the physical circumstances that we are in. And when it comes to light, yeah, there are so many software mitigation efforts or solutions, both in lighting and in displays, but they are super limited because the hardware is limited by its narrow and unnatural spectrum, etc. So yeah, I think being more reasonable and looking at the physical world.
Yeah. And the question for both of you would be, if Pixun didn't exist, what would you build? Liliana, let's start with you.
So I couldn't say exactly what I would build or the solution or service, but I can tell you exactly who I would be building for. It would be people who are outliers, because I think that most of what we build for is averages, whether it's language models or clinical trials or, big data aggregates to come to a solution. Those tend to lead to cookie cutter solutions that there are people that those are never going to work for. And those people, I feel like the sensitive people, the people who are intolerant to the tolerance of the masses for whatever solution is available, those intolerant, sensitive people those are the informed, in the sense that they are informing us or able to inform us of what is nascent as a problem that is about to grow into something much bigger, potentially. So I would talk to those people and find out where solutions are missing for them.
And Peter, what would you build if Pixun didn't exist?
Yeah, so a parallel, or it was a gradual process for me getting fully dedicated to Pixun. And in the meanwhile, I was involved with a couple of optical engineers in building glare-free or low-glare car headlights. And that's kind of a pet peeve of mine, related also to my own light sensitivity, because it's completely unnecessary. And we can really separate many factors of glare from road illumination, and we could keep road illumination high and contemporary while reducing the glare a lot. I'm not sure there's a market for that, because actually glare sells in this space. So it's a bit of a double-edged thing, but I'm very dedicated about that topic as well. And I'm also involved in some basic physics experiments involving light. And so that's kind of a hobby for now, but if I had more time, I would definitely work more on those as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, we could speak days about that topic, right? And it would definitely make sense to bring more focus on the topic, to how to use real sunlight for our daily lives and so on. I have one final question for both of you. If you could change one thing about how humans live and work indoors, what would it be, Liliana?
I mean, it would just to continue on the path that we're on, I think, to really change this access to sunlight indoors from something that seems so foreign and difficult to something that's quite, easy and just a matter of shifting how we think about infrastructure. I mean, at one point, indoor plumbing was, novel and revolutionary. We don't have to, open up the walls and, open up the windows anymore. We can use fiber. So I think just as indoor plumbing was a thing that became sort of standard, I think indoor sunning could become a thing that's pretty standard.
Yeah. And Peter, what would you change or one thing?
Yeah, just not to repeat what Liliana said, the same, but to expand on it a little bit, I think this could expand really to all domains. And now there's luckily a growing trend of salutogenic architecture and design. And really, this can expand to all factors that we can recognize, and their number is growing behind health and what makes a space really nice for people. And that's definitely not about energy efficiency, because what's the point of energy efficiency if the most energy efficient building is one without windows, as has been proposed at the peak of the brutalist times? And really, that's pointless, because we are building, at the end of the day, we are building the buildings for people. And so here, there's a huge, all kind of interactive ways opening up for research as well, because these factors interact. So for instance, now, especially on the US side, there's a lot of talk about mold and air quality as a factor behind health and deteriorating health in many cases. And that itself interacts with light. So we don't so much understand these interactions very well. And I'm super excited for all the research and eventually the applications that come out of that in this, let's say, salutogenic viewpoint to living and indoor spaces.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best closing sentence for this episode. Really, really great insights. And thank you for sharing your journey with us. I'm sure we definitely will hear more about you guys in the future. I'm very excited. What would be the next step in your journey? And yeah, unfortunately, that's it for this episode of Exit or Die. Again, huge thank you to you, Liliana, and to you, Peter, for showing us that the future of tech might not just be smarter. I think it's more healthier, right? And because maybe the biggest innovation is not another app. I think it's fixing the environment we live in every day.
Thank you so much, Peter. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's been great speaking with you.